Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Alex Questa Show. As always, I appreciate you being here. You did not have to press play, but you pressed play, and here you are. Welcome. Thank you. As always, with me, my trusty brother. I don't know what else to call you. You're my brother. David Questa. David, how are you?
Am I trusty?
You sometimes are. For the most part, I could trust you. Unless it's something not serious, then you're extremely not trustworthy because you are a troll.
There you go. There you go. So trusty isn't exactly the right word.
Because you're normally trolling at all times. But as always, when it comes to the socials, too damn lazy to give it out to you. And we're in kind of a rush today because David yelled at me because I jam-packed shows way too much. I'm like, Dave, we're only going to do one topic for these shows. And then I throw in like 19 things. So we're going to go fairly quickly. Once again, socials, just the Alex Questa Show. Go search it, Cuesta. Me and David share the last name. It's pretty damn unique. Unless you took Spanish, and you should know what it means. But it's amazing. Nobody really knows what our last name means or how it's spelled. It is rare. But we're going to jump in right away. Going to start off with something I just kind of read. Barstool Sports article where you would think that it's not something serious because Barstool Sports is mostly, funny things, but they do have some pretty damn good journals over at Barstool Sports. I will say that. I was on Twitter. I saw Dave Portnoy share an article about a shooting that I heard about today over in a Michigan high school. I didn't know all the details until I read this article. We need to talk about a person that's a true hero. We throw that word around all the time in this society. It's one of those buzzwords that everyone likes to say. They're a hero for this. They're a hero for that. These people are heroes. This group of people are heroes. But it's very rare that we actually have true heroism in this world. And this man, I refuse to call him a boy at this point. This man, 16-year-old man, gave up his life in defending his classmates from an active shooter. Setting aside the rage that there continues to be active shooters in these areas and this shit keeps happening. This man, Tate Meyer, like I mentioned, 16 years old, saw the active shooter, and while everyone else was either cowering or running away, from what the article said on Barstool and the information they're finding out, he went towards the shooter and took gunshot wounds while trying to disarm the shooter and eventually succumbed to his wounds. Now, before this, the shooter was able to shoot and kill two other students, Madison Baldwin, 17-year-old, and Hannah St. Julian, 14-year-old, which is tragic. And I wish all three of these families and that whole entire community from Oxford High School in Michigan they're never going to get over this, but I hope that some healing can come from it. But I just needed to point out, I think everyone needs to know the name Tate Meyer. 16-year-old man, was selfless, gave his life, sacrificed it all when facing true evil. And a lot of us talk a big game, and a lot of us say what we would do for our family, what we would do for our friends, what we would do for our kids, but we really don't know. And I can only hope that one day I'm half as brave as this individual, as this man was in a time of need. Dave, did you hear about this story today yet?
Yes, I did. I saw it earlier, and I saw that, I think, from your post, and I've seen a couple other things. But I'll talk more about this actually later. But yes, I did hear about it.
Okay. All right. So outside of that, again, Tate Meyer, remember that name. Read this story and teach your kids how to be like this individual, because this is exactly what we need to strive to be around the world, and especially as Americans. Moving on. I've been reading, Dave, as I always, listening to my audiobooks, Libby app, give you a plug again, go download Libby. And I'm decided to reread the Federalist Papers. Haven't read them since college, so it's been damn near a decade, if not more. And I've talked to you a few times, like the Federalist Papers are ingenious. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, John Jay wrote basically during the constitutional conventions. They're Federalists, which means that they are people that are for creating a federal government. And they were writing in contrast to what the anti-federalists were saying. So there's a ton of papers that they put in local newspapers in New York City. And I don't. I'm up to 50 something right now, and I'm only halfway through the Federalist Papers. I think there's 120 of them, if I'm not mistaken, maybe more. But a quote stuck out to me, and I want to read this quote real quick because I think it kind of encapsulates what they were thinking then, but essentially what's going on right now, exactly in our world. So this is a quote from James Madison. This is in Federalist Paper number 10. I implore everyone to read the Federalist Papers. I think it should be required reading at least like every 5 years. If the federal government wants to force anything down everybody's throats, it should be reading the Federalist Papers, the Constitution, Bill of Rights, yada, yada. Here's the quote from James Madison, Federalist Paper number 10. Liberty is to faction what air is to fire, an ailment without which it instantly expires. But it could not be less folly to abolish liberty, which is essential to political life because it nourishes faction, than it would be to wish annihilation of air, which is essential to animal life because it imparts fire its destructive agency. So again, reading Old English at times is sometimes difficult because they speak a little bit differently. But in plain English, what James Madison basically said there, and what was said in that paper and a few papers before, is they were talking about how the death of certain confederations around the world happened and what plagues certain current confederations and republics. And one of the things they brought up that the Anti-Federalists brought up is that when you have a republic, when you have a one national government, the factions usually rise and the factions eventually bring about the death of the republic because one side takes over, they gain either a majority or then they start to become basically absolutionist and totalitarian in a way. So what he's saying here is that the way you get factions is by giving people the free will to join up with each other. So it is definitely a threat, but you need to have that free will. Liberty is an essential part of life. They were fighting for sovereignty. They were fighting for liberty. So to be scared of liberty, to be scared of giving people freedom because they may join factions is just foolhardy. And his analogy was fire needs oxygen in order to rage and to be destructive. But we're not going to take away oxygen, which we need as animals, as humans and other animals need to survive, just because we're afraid of the fire. So I think that's what's going on a lot today. And I think we see currently there are factions that are willing to take away liberties right now. And I think this quote is very forward thinking, like the Federalist Papers completely are. And again, there's some things in the Federalist Papers that they were wrong about, which is why it's so important to read. But, and again, if you haven't read the Federalist Papers, if you don't know what they are, first of all, shame on your social studies teacher in high school. Terrible teachers, all of you, if you don't know about those. And second of all, please take the time to go read them or at least get summaries of all of them. Probably the most important documents in the history of man. Not even going to say that's a stretch. But Dave, that quote stuck out to me. It's stuck in my brain. I love that quote. I really, really love that quote. And I don't always agree with James Madison, John Jay, and Alexander Hamilton, where they stand politically. But these papers and that quote specifically was amazing.
Yeah. I haven't read like many of the Federalist Papers. So
you're one of those people that are evil.
Yeah, you've told that quote to me before. And it definitely is a good one. At least it makes sense in a certain way. And in fact, that quote has something to play into one of the things that you want to talk about right after this. 100%. So yeah, we can just move right into that if you want.
We're going to jump right in. So Twitter has become a space where supremacists live, not just black supremacists or white supremacists, but just, supremacy has reigned supreme on Twitter. Apparently, it has now become a free-for-all, which I have to say, if that's what it's going to be, if it's going to be free speech, period, that's cool. But we know it's not. So Jack Dorsey, the CEO, stepped down on Tuesday, I believe. And right away, the new CEO, Parag Agrawal, I'm going to ruin his name. People dug up a tweet from 10 years ago, and I'm going to read you the tweet. It's a quote. If they are not going to make a distinction between Muslims and extremists, then why should I distinguish between white people and racists? He did not put who the quote was by. He did not put where the quote was from. He just put that quote. Now, the leftists have come out in droves and said, oh, it was a quote from the Daily Show. It was a political commentator. It was meant to be a joke. Blah, 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 blah. Bullshit. He didn't put the aggregate there. He didn't put it as a joke. He quoted it. And normally when you quote something and just put it out there, it's basically saying what you believe. So I'm not giving this guy the benefit of the doubt. Now, one thing I have to say is because of this, if you're going to defend this saying that it was a joke, then I don't want to hear anyone on the left complaining about Dave Chappelle anymore and any of his trans jokes or any of his off-color jokes, because they're just jokes. Get over it. And lastly, on Twitter, the Twitter Spaces, I don't know if anyone knows what they are, but I've seen them. They pop up. Basically, you could start a verbal conversation, audio with anyone. You can allow speakers in there, and it just becomes giant virtual auditoriums where people are just ranting and raving and talking. Some good conversations. It's basically what the app Clubhouse was, and now Twitter has taken it over. And what we have seen since the CEO has taken over is a ton of different Black supremacist rooms starting off. Basically, one of them is Mayo monkeys need to be extinct or something like that, which Mayo monkey is absolutely awesome. Please keep calling every white person a Mayo monkey. It's fantastic. And if you want more of these quotes, I think 2 days ago or yesterday, the podcast of the Lotus Eaters went through a bunch of the hashtag making fun of white people, and they are just fucking hilarious. So please go Mayo monkeys. But and a whole bunch of shit was said in there, like talking about this one person supports the white genocide. They don't care. They want to kill all white people. And that's cool, apparently, on new Twitter. So white supremacists were like, hey, they could do it. So can we. And then there were spaces like, why are there so many Black women in public? And it's like, wait, what the fuck is going on here? Like, why is this okay? So if you want to go be a supremacist, Twitter's the way to go now. So enjoy your spaces of supremacy out there. Dave, are you going to be starting any supremacists? Can we start a Gastonian supremacist one? Neo-Gastonian supremacists unite.
So I actually love the Twitter Spaces thing because there's just something so funny about how ridiculous it can get and how outrageous it can get. And listen, I can understand some people might say, oh, but we don't want people say like that's just wrong. Like you shouldn't be saying things like that. And I get that. But wouldn't you want to know the people that are going to say it anyway? I mean, they're being honest, and you're seeing what they are. That's it's good to see people for what they are. It's a good thing, especially if they're telling you. So why would you want to take that away? I don't know. I love it. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's utterly ridiculous, and I love just hearing some of the nonsense come out.
Mayo monkey's fantastic. I love that. It's so funny. But yeah, so I'm all for free speech. So again, if Twitter just wants to go no holds barred and just says free speech for everyone, I'm cool with that, but they don't, because I'm not going to go into it, but they just limited how media could be spread, do pictures and videos on there, but that maybe it'll be for another time. We need to move on. One of the last few things I got to clean up before we get into the main topic, continue to follow the, I can't gasoline, Ghislaine, Maxwell.
It depends.
I don't know.
It depends on who you talk to.
It's a dumb name. I'm going to go with the You Are Here Brandon pronunciation. Ghislaine Maxwell is what is her name is going to be from now on. New York Times has been talking about her fashion during these trials, which just tells me, New York Times, you're a bunch of pedophiles. Anyway, keep following this. Lots of people on Tuesday. Not only Jack Dorsey, he didn't step down, but I think the Walmart CEO stepped down. There were a few people in high places, very wealthy individuals that stepped down during the start of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Coincidence? Maybe. But after some of the testimony talking about Prince Andrew and certain things that went on, I think one of the witnesses was Jane, who said that she was being used in a prostitution ring. Shit's getting real already in that trial, and it's going to be interesting. So please keep following. I think Technofrog, I don't know his name. He's one of the handles on Twitter. He's following it. Trial Tracker's following it. And go look at those. Continue and share this everywhere. Anything you see about this trial that you find interesting, share it. Put it on Facebook, put it on Instagram, put it on Twitter, because federal laws do not let them film it. And none of the mainstream outlets are rushing to cover it. They're covering the Roe v. Wade stuff. They're covering the Trump news that just came out about COVID. They're covering the Jussie Smollett trial. They are not covering Ghislaine Maxwell. I think we all know why, but blow it up. Pedophilia is wrong. These people should all be in the wood chipper. And that is that. So going on to my mini rant before my topic. I drive fast. Not crazy, like 18-year-old fast, but in the left lane when I'm on the freeway, I drive quick. I have a lot of pet peeves with people that drive on the road in general. First, don't go in the left lane and drive unless you're doing at least 10 over. Minimum 10 over. You're not helping anything or anybody. Maybe the cops, but not even really them, because they want to give us all tickets and make money. Number two, if you're not doing 10 over and you just want to pass, get up to at least that speed while passing and then get the fuck out of the way, because you suck if you just stay there. Number three, one of my biggest pet peeves, if you're sitting there moseying on, so here's the thing, if you're doing 10 over, if you're doing my minimum and there's someone flying up your ass and you see it in the mirror and you have a clear chance to get over and get out of their way and you don't, you're a dickhead and you're a bad driver. Get out of the way and let the person go. That annoys me. And last thing, cops should be focusing on people going the speed limit or under in the left lane and giving them tickets more than people at speed, because they are more dangerous than people at speed. You will never convince me that they're not, because they cause a lot of people to stop on their brakes, a lot of fender benders, because they're saving the world 1 mile at a time going slow. So that is my rant. David, do you have anything to add to my road rage rant before we move on? He's shaking his head no. David just wants to get this going because he wants to talk, because we did have a mini conversation about this topic, and he does have some things to say about it. I want to hear David. So let's go. Topic. Stop blaming millennials for your problems because you all failed as parents. And this is going out to the baby boomers and Gen X. Baby boomers 1946 to 1964, Gen X 1965 to 1980. Those people right now in the 75 to 41 range. So it's pretty fair to say most of these people are the ones that birthed and raised the millennial and Gen Z generation. I'm not letting millennials and Gen Z off the hook. Don't get me wrong. David, our generations absolutely suck. They are shitty. They are soft, and they all have these little fake mental disorders. So I'm not letting them off the hook. But there is a reason why they are this way. Part of it has to do with luxuries, technologies, and everything that comes with having a successful society. Yes, every other generation gets softer as more technology comes out. Less people need to work as hard. Less people need to get their hands dirty. That kind of comes with the territory. But Dave, we see an insane amount of hate being thrown at millennials. There are full articles written about why millennials aren't having as much kids, why millennials are doing this, what millennials are ruining here. And it's like, do you not realize that Blink-182 was right? If we're fucked up, you're to blame. Like, it is that clear and it is that simple that millennials and Gen Z didn't just come and out of nowhere just have in their genes just to be shitty pansies, to not be any sort of tough. They were raised to be pussies. Like, lack of a better term, they were all raised to be soft. Now, the generations before, the baby boomers, Gen X, they went through some shit. That generation went through some shit. They were raised by World War II vets, a lot of them. A lot of people that survived and went through the travesties of World War II. in America, especially, and everything going through with sending a lot of military. A lot of these people fought in Vietnam, North Korea, the Korean War, and they lived through the Cold War. They were civil rights activists. So there's a good group of them that are pretty tough. Then there's also a bunch of them that were soft as shit, even during that time. The people that were constantly rioting and promoting civil unrest. A bunch of people that sat at home in academia and didn't go to war and started these communist, socialist, fascist movements and are now major educators, sitting in major unions, politicians. And a lot of the anti-war and hippie generation that just wanted to do drugs and fight the power, they're now all in power. They're now all the ones that are spreading these philosophies. They taught our kids that, you know, fight the power and all this and don't listen to the man. And then they became the man and did just that. Dave, I was at the start of the everybody gets a trophy generation. I was at the start of you're special and can do whatever you set your mind to. You're unique. And we all know that that's all bullshit. Everyone doesn't deserve a trophy. You can't do what you want to do. Not every goal that you set out, you're going to accomplish. It's, I don't know, Dave, I have more to say, but is there anything that you kind of want to interject with anything that I've said so far?
So we come to a point of like agreement here where there was had to have been failures in the previous generations in order for an outcome like this. No doubt at all. But I think the main difference that we might have is that for me, yes, a lot of parenting failure happened, 100%, 100%. But also, and this goes towards the generation, but also it was just a lot of cultural failure that happened. And we're seeing the product of the cultural failure where just mental illness at an all-time high. Everyone has anxiety, everyone has depression, everything like that. And you could ask yourself, oh, well, didn't they all just kind of like have it back then, but maybe they didn't talk about it as much or something like that, or maybe they kept it inside. But you could say that, but it didn't seem to affect them as much as it affected our generations. And I mean, to tie this back to what we were talking about earlier, like I said, I would talk about this later. The fact of the matter is we can keep asking why these tragic events keep happening. We're going to have to look at ourselves in the mirror and understand that it is a cultural problem that is going on. When we have everyone on social media, damn near everyone on social media that's not a motivational speaker and that's not trying to make you feel good about yourself is talking about how depressed they are, is talking about how anxious, how bad of a day they had or something like that. There's not a lot of positive things coming out. And you could say that's for many different reasons, but it's all going to stem back to the fact that right now, culturally, we're in a depression culturally. It's not good. And when people are lost, when people don't feel like that they could find something positive and that they have this ambition, people crack all the time, all the time. And where our disagreement is that millennials now, you guys are old. I hate to tell you this, you guys are old. You're not young anymore.
Yep.
And maybe part of the problem with the parenting is that you were never taught how to become an adult, because you don't just become an adult. There are things you need to learn, but you're now at the age that you need to buck up, because you're the ones with kids. You're the ones that are going to have to teach your kids to not fall into what you fell into. Whether or not your parents did wrong, whether or not everyone before you screwed up, it is now on you. You cannot blame them. It's not them anymore. It's you. So I think that's kind of where we go off.
Yeah. So, but here's the question I have for you then. Who created this culture? Like, I guess you could blame, Mark Zuckerberg, I guess, is a millennial and he created Facebook. Tom, whatever his last name is, created MySpace. These weren't necessarily your baby boomers or Gen Xers that created those things, which have become cultural phenomenons. But who created the culture of victimhood? Who is the generation that has taught that in schools? Who are the ones that, have created like basically the victimhood hierarchy that we're seeing? Like, it is cool to have a mental anxiety, a depression now. Who made that okay? Who are the ones that were saying, no, we have to talk about this. Have a conversation group. It's not your millennials and Gen Zers that thought that up. And you always like to say, politics is downstream from culture. And the people that are controlling the politics right now are still your baby boomers, are still your Gen Xers. Those are our general makeup of most of our governments around the nation. So that is where I would argue is that generation is still the most culturally influential generation right now. Millennials are starting to make their stamp. And it comes quicker now with the stamps that we make because of social media and technology improvements. But we're still seeing huge, the Bill Ayers, he was a part of the Weather Underground that bombed initially the World Trade Center. He has been a professor since then at major universities. There are just, Saul Alinsky was an educator. Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, basically writes out how to do things like that, how to create travesties, create chaos. We have people following the critical theories written by guys like Herbert Marcuse and Antonio Gramsci and all these types of things, which teach you to be angry, to cause riots, to cause revolutions. These are the cultural things that we're learning. People that praise Mao Zedong, Chairman Mao, who did the Great Leap Forward. And a lot of the things we're seeing right now are very similar to what happened during Mao's China. So that generation's influence, I don't think can be discounted. And that was the group of people that, if you were fortunate enough to not get raised by somebody who was a friggin' hippie or was a hippie and looked at him when we were idiots. But the sad part is there are millions of people in the millennial and Gen Z era that were raised by these counterculture people who, maybe were put down and still believe that, the man's always out to get them. So everything's for a revolution. Everything's against something. It's never your fault. You can do whatever you want. Don't let anyone, all these messages that we were taught were positive when we were younger have actually been crippling to a lot of our generation now. So that's, I think, where we do disagree, is because I still think that influence is major upon everything that's going on. That has to do with the way parents and leaders have taught the kids.
Real quick, this is not me trying to be like nitpicky. It's Mao
Go ahead,
Zedong.
nitpick.
Mao Zedong.
Mao Zedong, sorry.
You're probably thinking of Xi Jinping.
I was thinking of Xi Jinping. Yes, Mao Zedong, sorry.
Yeah, not to be nitpicky, but
no, nitpick away. We need to
corrections
be right
are needed.
We need to be right.
But no, and I'm not entirely against what you're saying here. Obviously, as I mentioned it, their influence is something that matters. It does matter because it's part of what got us here. Yeah. But I guess I'm just coming from it from the point that no matter, like, there comes a time in your life where no matter what has happened in the past, obviously it takes time to do this, but you need to look at yourself. There needs to be a lot of self-reflection here. There needs to be a lot of things that you're thinking about, especially if you're at a point where you might wake up and think, oh, I don't want to do this today. Oh, I don't want, or you're waking up and thinking about how you're going to deal with your depression today. And I believe me, I know how that feels. I've gone through that through those things, but you need the self-reflection. You need to go through this, and you need to find a way to build within yourself culturally first before you can even raise kids. And I just think that millennials are at the age where you're going to need to find yourself, because you cannot blame those in the past for not finding yourself anymore. You're not a kid. You went through the turmoil. You might have been completely raised incorrectly, but now you're on your own. This is life. Like you have to find it. If you don't find it, then it'll never be found.
So we kind of screwed in that situation. Like, are millennials going to be lost since we are sort of starting to age out a little bit there, where we're kind of all at the age where, it's a good age to start a family. It's a good age to, really start to have a career. Like, I'm 33. I'm kind of a middle millennial. I'd say, I guess 88's one of the middle millennials. I think our sister is still considered like an early millennial, but are we at a point where, is it too late for millennials to get the influence? Because I was listening to Glenn Beck earlier, and he talked about the 80-year pendulum of we coming back. Every 40 years, it switches and it starts to go. We're about to be at the peak of the we, where everything's about the collective. And then it goes 40 years from now, it's the me, where everything's again back to the individual. And throughout history, there's been a we, me kind of roller coaster that goes on. Is this kind of chalked up to that we are so stuck and we need to just get past this we mentality, this collective mentality that is trying to take over, and just kind of keep our heads above water so we can get back to rugged individualism? Or do you think that there is some rehabilitation, that there is hope? Because I like to have hope, and I see a lot more out there, but none of us are in power. We don't have that AOC. We don't have a squad, of individuals in high ranking places. Like, don't get me wrong. AOC is going to win her Senate seat. She's probably going to replace Chuck Schumer, and they are going to run this woman for president. Within the next decade, AOC is going to make a presidential run. Don't doubt me on that. She's at age, I think, for the senatorial run, she could run for president. I think she's going to be 35 soon. They are going to run her. And there's a very good chance that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez becomes a president, just because of how they have glorified and panned her. And there's a book about her, an article, like, she is getting glorified. So where is that from the individuals? Where is that from the millennials that aren't like AOC, who don't praise victimhood? I don't see that, Dave.
So one, we both agree on this. And the fact of the matter is that, as annoying as it would be that AOC keeps winning, and we could talk about that in another podcast, because that's a whole nother thing. But when it comes down to influence over your life and your family and your neighborhood and people you care about, we both agree that locally it matters the most. All the federal stuff should not matter as much as we allow it to right now. It shouldn't. It matters, but not as much as locally, because locally affects you the most.
Yep.
But that's one. So don't be like, oh, millennials don't have anyone there, because you're going to have people in your own community. That's what matters the most. Two, and I don't want you to think about, like, not you, but anyone listening, like, rehabilitation, rehabilitation as in, like, oh, they need to talk to someone or something like that. That's not what it is. It's just people change through a variety of ways. One of them is a huge event happening. So, like, having a child. If you have a child, depending on like what type of person you are, but most people change, and they usually change for the good, because there is a type of love there that you just don't get anywhere else. So, and you want to take care of your child. So people change usually for the better when they have a child. But also, it just through the years, you change as a person. People like to act like they don't change. They do. You change all the time. And you just never take the time to look back and think about it most of the time, because there's no reason to. You have things to do. And so it's not about, like, rehabbing the millennial generation. It's more about they had to take longer to come into their own because of the missteps of prior generations. So At least that's how I feel. So it'll happen. At least I believe so. I believe it'll happen. I believe the millennial generation will bring about good things. It's just right now, I don't feel that it's great. And all the articles coming out, whatever. We know all these articles come out anyway about anyone and anything, and most of them are hogwash. So yeah, they can say whatever they want about millennials, and some of it may be true, but you also have to remember that we're building on technology within 10, 20 years that for like the past hundreds of years haven't been a thing. Like we're just growing at such a rapid pace. Everything's in such a tailspin. So it takes a little bit longer for us as people, I guess, to grow into what we're supposed to be. But I feel like we just are going to do that anyway.
So I think in the end, I think that we both agree with the premise of the conversation that millennials don't deserve all the blame because there was a ton of failure from the prior generations. But you're looking at it from the sense of, okay, that's true, but buck the fuck up, grow up, and get to work on becoming what you're supposed to be as a generation. And let's put our next best step forward.
Yeah, because I mean, just the way I look at it is the fact of the matter is that someone could have broken some of the bridge in front of you. But if you need to cross that thing, you're going to have to find a way, dude. It's that simple.
So very quickly, because I want to end this show. I just thought of this, so it's off the cuff. What role should religion play in potentially getting back? Because we have a lot more agnostic. We have a lot more atheists than we ever did. And we know from history that plays very well into the collectivist mindset, where the collectivists kind of take over that religious sense, the party of whatever it is, whether it's communism, fascism, socialism in general, that party becomes a religion. Chairman Mao was the god, and things like that. Like that becomes a religion. So right now, Christianity is a dirty word. You can't say Christians. Jews always get a bad look. Everyone, it's either defend Israel, hate Israel type of thing, and there's no in between. We're all just Israeli Jews. Apparently, the Jews are all just the one group. What role is religion going to play, or should it play, in terms of trying to get this back in the moral fibers?
I don't know. Well, first off, I really don't see many millennials or anyone else that have been an atheist or just haven't thought about religion in a long time to really turn to religion, at least anytime soon. I don't really see it coming to that. But I do see that if people start becoming disillusioned of what is the narrative right now, because they should be if they see some of the things coming out, seeing how they've been lied to about many things. But if they start becoming disillusioned to that, not that they'll turn to God, but they might turn to some of the moral framework that we have seen from almost any religions that people are involved in. So I don't think that they'll turn to God, but if there is any kind of turning towards a religion, it'll just be towards the moral framework of it, of just saying like, maybe it's not the greatest thing to have one night stands all the time. Like, maybe it's not the greatest thing to do that. Maybe there is something about tempering what you do, not having to be on your moral high horse all the time. Like, I can't believe I forgot his name. Homer's neighbor.
Oh my God. Flanders.
Yes. Like Flanders. You don't have to be Flanders, but you could just temper what you do. I think people will turn to that, especially if they're not feeling good with what they're doing now. And if they realize that they're just being lied to by people. You could just live a decent life by just working on what you want to work on and not listening to saying, just go enjoy life, man. Act like you're going to die the next day. Like, no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. You could just work on what you want to work on and have fun, have a family, do something like that.
All right. So I think that's a good note. So David, with the hopeful side of this, when I was trying to make it into a big negative. So go ahead.
Everything can be turned into a white pill. Do not get black pilled. It is not a good thing. Try to turn your day into a white pill at all times, because once you're black pilled, that's it. That's what we've been talking about.
Moral of the story, vote the baby boomers the fuck out of power. Boom. Roasted. All right. So again, everybody, thanks for listening to the show. Hope you enjoyed the conversation, the Alex Cuesta show. I'm always joined by my brother, David. It's always a good time to have him around. Socials, not going to give it to you. Too lazy. Go look it up. The Alex Cuesta show. Cuesta is the last name. It's unique. Once again, everybody, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Have a good one all.